The morning of my daughter's funeral, I thought nothing could make that day worse. Then my brother Garrett stood up in front of 200 people and said the words that made my blood freeze. She killed her own child for insurance money. The church erupted. People were screaming. Someone called 911. But what nobody knew was that I had been recording everything on my phone for the past hour, and the truth was far more twisted than anyone imagined. My name is Verena. I'm 39 years old, and 5 days ago, I lost my 17-year-old daughter, Celestine, in a car accident. She was driving home from her best friend's house when she lost control on Miller's Curve during a rainstorm. The police said she died on impact. They said she didn't suffer. But standing in that church, watching my own brother Garrett destroy my life while using my daughter's death as his weapon, I realized that suffering comes in many forms. Some pain doesn't kill you instantly. Some pain waits until you're at your weakest, surrounded by everyone you love, and then it strikes through the mouth of someone you trusted most. Garrett is 42, 3 years older than me. He works as an insurance investigator, which is how he knew exactly what lies to tell and how to make them believable. Our mother, Dolores, 65 years old and still wearing the same pearl necklace our father gave her before he died, sat in the front row when Garrett made his announcement. She knew what he was about to do. I could see it in the way she gripped her purse, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes. "I have evidence," Garrett had said, holding his phone up like he was Moses with the 10 Commandments. A recording from Celestine herself, sent the night she died. 200 faces turned to stare at me, friends who'd known me since high school, Celestine's teachers who'd come to pay their respects. My co-workers who'd watched me raise my daughter alone after her father left when she was 3. They all looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was a monster. But I knew something Garrett didn't know I knew. That morning, when I arrived at the church early to make sure everything was perfect for my baby girl's goodbye, I turned on my phone's recorder. I wanted to capture the eulogies, the memories people shared, something to hold on to when the grief became unbearable. Instead, I caught my brother and mother in the parking lot planning my destruction. "Play the recording," someone shouted from the back of the church. "Yes, let's hear it," another voice demanded. Garrett smiled at me then. Not a cruel smile, but something worse. A pitying smile, like he was sorry it had to be this way, but business was business. That's when I knew that my brother, the same one who taught me to ride a bike and walked me down the aisle at my wedding because Dad was gone, had already decided I was expendable. He pressed play on his phone, and my daughter's voice filled the sacred space where we were supposed to be celebrating her life, not weaponizing her death. But I stood up, steady as stone, because mothers don't get to fall apart when their children need defending. Not even when those children are gone. Not even when the whole world is watching. Not even when your own family is the one holding the knife. The funeral home smelled like lilies and grief. That's a smell you never forget once you've experienced it. It gets into your clothes, your hair, your skin, and no amount of washing makes it go away. I stood in the receiving line at Riverside Memorial Chapel, my legs barely holding me up as person after person whispered condolences that all sounded the same after a while. She was so young, gone too soon. Such a bright future ahead of her. Celestine had been gone for only 5 days. 5 days since that Tuesday night when the rain came down so hard you couldn't see 10 feet in front of your car. 5 days since she'd called me at 8:30 to say she was leaving Tessa's house and would be home by 9. 5 days since the police knocked on my door at 10:47 p.m. with faces that told me everything before they said a word. The investigators said she lost control on Miller's Curve, Officer Brendan had explained gently. That stretch of road has claimed 3 other young drivers this year. The city council has been debating installing better lighting and guardrails, but budget constraints keep pushing it back. Now here I was, shaking hands with my dental hygienist, my daughter's piano teacher, the woman who cuts my hair at Superior Salon. They all wore the same expression of studied sorrow, the kind people practice in the mirror before attending a funeral for someone who died too young. My brother Garrett hadn't spoken to me since he arrived an hour ago. He stood in the corner near the memorial photo display, whispering urgently with our mother, Dolores. Every time I caught his eye, he looked away like he'd been caught doing something wrong. His wife, Pamela, hadn't come, which struck me as odd. She and Celestine had been close. Celestine used to babysit their twins on weekends. "Mrs. Ashford," Father McKenna approached me with his gentle voice. "We're ready to begin the service whenever you are." I nodded, though ready was the last thing I'd ever be. How do you prepare to say goodbye to your child? How do you stand in front of everyone and pretend that words can somehow capture 17 years of love, dreams, and memories? "Verena, honey, you should sit down," my mother said, suddenly at my elbow, guiding me toward the front pew. "The service is about to start, and you need to conserve your strength." There was something in her voice that felt off, too careful, too rehearsed, like she was playing a part in a play where she'd already read the ending. I sat down in the front row, clutching the funeral program with Celestine's senior portrait on the cover, those bright hazel eyes that would never open again. That smile she'd inherited from her grandmother, though Dolores would never admit to smiling that much in her youth. Inside the program was the eulogy I'd written and rewritten 14 times, never getting it quite right. Because how do you summarize a life that should have had 60 more years? Father McKenna took his place at the podium and began with Psalm 23, Celestine's favorite since she was little. She used to make me read it to her every night when she was scared of thunderstorms. "The Lord is my shepherd," Father McKenna's voice filled the chapel. "I shall not want." That's when I noticed Garrett reaching into his jacket pocket, pulling out his phone. His hands were shaking, and there was sweat on his forehead despite the aggressive air conditioning that made the chapel feel like a meat locker. He looked at our mother one more time, and she gave him the smallest nod. If I hadn't been watching, I would have missed it. "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures," Father McKenna continued. Garrett stood up. The pew creaked under the shift of his weight. A few people turned to look, probably thinking he was stepping out to take a call or use the restroom, but he walked toward the center aisle instead, his phone gripped in his right hand like a weapon. "Before we continue," Garrett's voice boomed across the church, drowning out the priest, "there's something everyone needs to hear." Father McKenna stopped mid-sentence, his mouth still open on the word still. 200 heads turned in unison, like they were all attached to the same string. The funeral director, Mr. Jacobson, started moving from his position by the door, probably to escort Garrett out, but my brother held up his hand. "This is about Celestine," Garrett said, his voice cracking just enough to sound genuine. "About how she really died. My sister Verena isn't who you think she is." The chapel became so quiet I could hear the rain starting outside, tapping against the stained glass windows like fingers demanding to be let in. "My sister, Verena, took out a $1 million life insurance policy on Celestine just 2 months ago," Garrett announced, holding his phone high above his head like he was displaying evidence in a courtroom. "I have evidence she tampered with her daughter's car." The church exploded into chaos. My mother gasped and covered her mouth with both hands, though I noticed she didn't look surprised, just performatively shocked. People started shouting over each other. Mrs. Henderson from 2 rows back screamed, "Oh my God!" Someone else yelled, "Call the police!" I heard phones being pulled out, fingers frantically tapping screens. "Garrett, what are you doing?" I stood up, my voice breaking not from guilt, but from the sheer betrayal of it. My own brother, at my daughter's funeral, turning her memorial into a circus. "I'm doing what's right," he said coldly, his eyes meeting mine for the first time since he'd arrived. "I'm making sure Celestine gets justice. I have a recording from her. She sent it to me the night she died." My legs felt like water. Not because what he was saying was true, but because I suddenly understood the full scope of what was happening. This wasn't a moment of grief-driven madness. This was planned, calculated. The way he stood, the way he held that phone, even the way he'd positioned himself where everyone could see him clearly. This was theater. "You're lying," I said, but my voice was drowned out by the crowd's reaction. "Play it," someone shouted from the back. "Let's hear what Celestine said," another voice demanded. Garrett pressed play. The church's acoustics, designed to carry hymns to heaven, instead carried my daughter's voice across the space. But it wasn't quite right. The tone was off, the cadence strange, like words cut from different conversations and stitched together. "Uncle Garrett, I found something in Mom's desk. Insurance papers, and there's something wrong with my car. The brakes feel weird. I'm scared. What if she—" The recording cut to static, that harsh white noise that makes your teeth hurt. A woman in the back row was already on the phone with 911. Yes, we need police at Riverside Memorial Chapel immediately. A murder confession or evidence of murder, I don't know. Just come quickly. My cousin Nadine was crying, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. How could you, Verena? She was your baby. Father McKenna stood frozen at the altar, his hands still holding the Bible open to Psalms, looking like he was waiting for God himself to explain what was happening in his house. You monster! Someone shouted at me. I turned to see Mr. Patterson, Celestine's chemistry teacher, pointing at me with a shaking finger. She had her whole life ahead of her. How could you kill your own child? This from Janet Bowman, whose daughter Emma had been Celestine's best friend in middle school. The accusations came faster now, overlapping like waves during a storm. Murderer! Child killer! You sat there and let us comfort you. My mother had collapsed back into her seat, one hand pressed to her chest like she was having a heart attack, but her eyes were clear and watching everything unfold exactly as planned. I saw it then, the slight upturn at the corner of her mouth quickly suppressed. Everyone, please. Father McKenna finally found his voice. Let's remain calm and... Calm? Garrett interrupted. My sister murdered her daughter for money and you want us to be calm? The police are on their way, someone announced. Nobody leave, we're all witnesses. I stood there in the center of this hurricane watching my brother conduct this orchestra of accusations. He was good at this, I had to admit. The timing, the delivery, the way he'd primed everyone to believe the worst before they'd even heard the recording. He knew exactly which buttons to push in a room full of people already emotional from grief. Garrett, I said louder this time, my voice cutting through the chaos. That recording is edited. Of course you'd say that, he replied, shaking his head with practiced disappointment. Desperate people say desperate things. No, I mean it's literally edited. That's not even from one conversation. You splice different recordings together. Listen to her trying to deny it, someone said. Disgusting. The door to the chapel burst open. 2 police officers entered, hands on their weapons surveying the scene. Behind them, more were arriving, lights flashing through the stained glass and painting everyone in alternating reds and blues. Ma'am, one officer approached me. We're going to need you to come with us. Wait, I said, reaching into my purse. Several people gasped, probably thinking I was reaching for a weapon, but I pulled out my phone instead. I have something you all need to hear first. I stood there for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. The police officers were moving closer, their hands still hovering near their weapons. The crowd was pressing in, their anger palpable, their need for someone to blame for this senseless tragedy overwhelming the sacred space. My brother stood triumphant. The conquering hero who'd exposed a monster. My mother remained in her seat, playing the shocked matriarch to perfection. In those 3 seconds, I made a choice. Not the choice of a guilty person looking for an escape, but the choice of a mother who'd been documenting everything since arriving at the chapel that morning, though I hadn't known why at the time. Call it instinct, call it paranoia, call it a mother's sixth sense that something was terribly wrong. Officers, I understand you need to do your job, I said, my voice steady and clear. But before you arrest me based on a clearly edited recording, you should hear the full conversation that took place in the parking lot this morning. Ma'am, you'll have opportunity to present evidence, the younger officer started. No, I interrupted. Everyone here deserves to hear this now. They just heard my daughter's voice manipulated to destroy her memory. They deserve the truth. I held up my phone, showing the recording app that had been running for the past 2 hours and 43 minutes. I've been recording everything since I arrived this morning. I wanted to capture the eulogies, the memories, something to hold on to when the grief became unbearable. Garrett's face went pale, the color draining so fast I thought he might faint. Verena, don't do this. Don't do what, Garrett? Tell the truth? I walked toward the microphone at the podium, my heels clicking against the floor in the silence. You just used my dead daughter's voice to frame me for murder. You don't get to ask me for anything. The police officers looked at each other, uncertain. The senior one, whose badge read Sergeant Mills, nodded slightly. Play it, but make it quick. Everyone deserves the truth, I said, connecting my phone to the church's sound system through the auxiliary cable the funeral home used for memorial slideshows. The whole truth about why my brother would do this. My mother tried to stand. "Verena, please, this isn't the time or place." "You're right, Mom," I said, looking directly at her. "The time was never supposed to be at Celestine's funeral. The place was never supposed to be in God's house. But Garrett chose this moment, so here we are." I scrolled through the recording to 8:47 a.m., when I'd been standing by my car, gathering the strength to walk into the chapel. The timestamp was clear on the screen, which the funeral home's projection system displayed for everyone to see. "This is from the parking lot this morning," I announced. "I was in my car when Garrett and our mother had this conversation 10 feet away." The audio began with the sound of car doors closing, then footsteps on gravel. Garrett's voice came through clear and urgent. "Mom, stop looking at me like that. This is the only way." "I don't like it," my mother's voice responded. "Using Celestine's death like this." "You don't have to like it," Garrett said. "You just have to play your part. Act shocked when I reveal the recording. Collapse if you can manage it." "And you're sure this will work?" "I'm an insurance investigator, Mom. I know exactly what evidence they look for. The edited voicemail, the insurance policy Verena took out for Celestine's college, my testimony as a professional in the field. It's enough for an arrest. Once she's charged, even if she's eventually cleared, the damage is done." "But why, Garrett? Why destroy your sister?" There was a pause in the recording, the sound of wind picking up, then Garrett's voice, lower now but still audible. "You know why, the gambling debts. They're going to kill me if I don't pay. 50,000 by the end of the month or they start with my fingers." "That's not Verena's fault." "No, but Celestine's trust fund becomes accessible if Verena's convicted of a crime. Dad set it up that way, remember? To protect the family assets. If the primary beneficiary commits a felony, it goes to the secondary beneficiaries. That's us, Mom." The church was absolutely silent now. Even the rain outside seemed to have stopped, as if nature itself was listening to this betrayal unfold. "Play the recording from 3 minutes earlier," I said to no one in particular, scrolling back further. "Let them hear how you practiced editing Celestine's voice." Garrett lunged toward me then, but the police officers stopped him, each grabbing an arm. "That's enough," Sergeant Mills said. The recording continued playing, and Garrett's voice filled the church again, but this time the context was devastating. The timestamp showed 8:44 a.m., just 3 minutes before the conversation about his gambling debts. "Listen to this, Mom," Garrett's voice said through the speakers. "I've been working on it all night." The sound of another phone playing came through my recording, and then we all heard it. Snippets of Celestine's voice, but choppy, clearly spliced together. "Uncle Garrett." Then a pause. Then, "I found something." Then another pause. Then, "In Mom's desk." "You're editing her voicemails," my mother's voice accused on the recording. "Not editing, Mom. Creating." This part about Uncle Garrett is from her birthday message to me last month. The bit about finding something is from when she found that old photo album. The insurance papers part comes from when she was helping Verena organize documents for college financial aid. This is sick, Garrett. This is survival. Now listen to how I added the part about the car. Another playback sound and Celestine's voice came through again, this time saying, "Something wrong with my car. The brakes feel weird." "That's from 2 different conversations," Garrett explained on the recording. "She said something's wrong with my car when she had that flat tire in January. The brakes feel weird is from a YouTube video she sent me about a true crime podcast. I isolated her voice reading the title out loud." The church was deathly quiet. People who had been ready to lynch me 5 minutes ago now stood frozen, processing what they were hearing. Mrs. Henderson, who had screamed earlier, had her hand over her mouth in horror. "You planned this before she even died?" my mother asked in the recording. "No, Mom, I'm not a monster. But when the accident happened, when I heard about it Tuesday night, I realized I could use it. The universe handed me a solution." "The universe, Garrett, your niece is dead. And I'm about to be dead too if I don't get that money. These aren't people who accept payment plans. They're the kind who dump bodies in the river." I stopped that recording and switched to another file. This is Celestine's actual voicemail to Garrett from Tuesday night at 8:47 p.m. Her real voice filled the church, bright and alive and unedited. "Uncle Garrett, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. I got into Northwestern, early admission. Can you believe it? I was just reading Mom my essay in the car, the one about overcoming challenges after Dad left." She started crying. Uncle Garrett. Good tears, though. She's been so supportive through everything. She even took out that big insurance policy to make sure I could go to college debt-free. She said she never wanted me to struggle like she did. Anyway, I'm driving to Tessa's house right now to celebrate. She's got a cake and everything. I love you, Uncle Garrett. Thank you for always believing in me. Oh, and Mom says to tell you she loves you too. Bye. The timestamp was clear, 8:47 p.m. The accident was called in at 9:15 p.m., 28 minutes. That's all the time my baby had left when she made that call. "There's more," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was shattering all over again. "This is from my phone conversation with Garrett at 9:45 p.m. Tuesday night, 30 minutes after the accident." My voice came through the speakers first, broken and sobbing. "Garrett, she's gone. My baby is gone. The police just left. I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry, Verena. This is horrible. She was such a good kid." "She called you tonight, didn't she? She said she was going to tell you about Northwestern." "Yeah, she left a voicemail. I haven't listened to it yet. I was in a meeting." The lie was so smooth, so effortless. He'd already listened to it. He'd already started planning how to use it. "One more recording," I said, switching to a final file. "This is from 3 days ago when Garrett came to my house to comfort me." Garrett's voice. "Verena, I need to ask you something difficult. Did Celestine seem depressed lately? Any signs she might have done this on purpose?" My voice confused. "What? No, why would you even ask that?" "The insurance policy. If it was suicide, it won't pay out. But if it was an accident or something else entirely, well, that's different." "Garrett, what are you talking about?" "Nothing. I'm just thinking out loud. Grief makes us all crazy." Now I understood. He'd been testing me, seeing if I knew about the suicide clause, planting seeds for his eventual accusation. Sergeant Mills stepped forward. "Mr. Garrett Pearson, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, tampering with evidence, and conspiracy." The police arrested Garrett right there in the church, in front of the same 200 people he'd tried to turn against me. He didn't resist. As they led him away, he looked at me with eyes full of something I'd never seen before. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was just defeat. Or maybe it was the realization that he'd destroyed everything our family had built for money he owed to dangerous people. "I'm sorry, Verena," he said as they walked him past me. "They said they'd hurt Pamela and the twins if I didn't pay." I wanted to feel sympathy. This was my brother, the person who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd walked me down the aisle when Dad couldn't be there. But he'd chosen to use my daughter's death as a weapon. He'd sat in my kitchen 3 days after she died, drinking my coffee and planning my destruction. My mother hasn't spoken to me since that day. She knew what Garrett was planning and chose to help him anyway. She chose her son over her daughter even when she knew he was wrong. She moved to Florida a month later to live with her sister. I heard from my cousin that she tells people she only has one child now, and that child is in prison. Somehow, in her mind, I'm the one who betrayed the family by exposing the truth. The insurance money came through 2 months later. $1 million that was supposed to ensure Celestine could attend any college she wanted, pursue any dream she chose, without the burden of debt I'd carried for 15 years. I stared at that check for hours, this piece of paper that represented my daughter's stolen future. I donated every penny to fund a safe driving program at Celestine's high school. They installed new driver simulation equipment, brought in professional instructors, and started teaching defensive driving techniques specifically for that deadly stretch of Miller's Curve. In the first year alone, they trained 300 students. The city finally approved funding for better lighting and guardrails after our story made national news. They named it the Celestine Memorial Safety Initiative. But here's what haunts me most. Garrett was so desperate, so consumed by his gambling debts, that he was willing to destroy my life using my daughter's death as an opportunity. He saw that phone call about her college acceptance and immediately thought about how he could weaponize it. While I was identifying my baby's body, he was splicing audio files. While I was picking out her burial dress, he was rehearsing his performance with our mother. 3 months later, I received a letter from Garrett in prison. Just 4 words. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I kept that letter. Not because I forgive him, because I don't know if I ever will, but because it reminds me that grief and desperation can turn anyone into someone unrecognizable, even family. Especially family. The brother I grew up with died the moment he decided my daughter's death was his financial salvation. Celestine's favorite quote was from Maya Angelou, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them." That day in the church, everyone showed me exactly who they were. The ones who immediately believed I was guilty without question, the ones who stayed silent when mob mentality took over, and the precious few who came to me afterward, saying they never doubted me, though I noticed none of them had spoken up when it mattered. I visit Celestine's grave every Tuesday at 3 p.m., the time she was born. I tell her about Northwestern, how they created a memorial scholarship in her name. I tell her about the students who received those scholarships, kids who remind me of her with their bright eyes and endless dreams. I tell her about the lives saved by the driving program, 16 accidents prevented in just the first year alone. I don't tell her about Garrett or Grandma Dolores. Some truths, even in death, are too heavy to share. The church recording went viral within days. 20 million views in the first week. People called me brave for exposing him. News stations wanted interviews. True crime podcasts begged for exclusive rights to the story. I turned them all down. I wasn't brave. I was just a mother protecting her daughter one last time. Because even when they're gone, that's what mothers do. We guard their memory, their truth, their light against anyone who would dare try to dim it. Even if that someone shares our blood, even if it costs us the family we have left. Because some things matter more than family. Truth matters. Justice matters. And the memory of a 17-year-old girl who died believing the world was full of love and possibility, that matters most of all. If this story touched you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below about how you've dealt with family betrayal or loss. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that remind us of the strength we carry, even in our darkest moments.